All right, good morning, everyone. On this Wednesday, I'm Wave meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to a special report here on the storm setup as we evolve through this alert day. A long stretch of alert days coming our way as we evolve into not only today, but tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, and hope that we can say goodbye to all of this by the time we get into Sunday. And so far, the data agrees that looks to be the case, that Sunday will be the day that we finally get out of this before we get into a whole other setup for next week, which I'll cover toward the end here in just a few moments. All right, if you guys are new to watching, as always, you can comment, ask your questions. I will try to catch them in time on our social media pages, whether it is on YouTube, Facebook, or even on Twitch. For some reason, X is not working today. Don't know why, but I think they're having issues on their site in general. So you won't be able to go there. Anyway, if you're able to go to the other social pages, you want to chime in, you can. Otherwise, enjoy the stream if you're watching on the app or online in general, or on even the Fire Stick. Here's the thing. What I like to do, as you guys know, they've been here for a while, I tried to go through this in a very chronological way. I'll give you a snapshot of the overall setup. Then we'll break each one of these down in threats and in a time frame, and hope that by the time I'm done with this, I've covered everything that we need to cover to get us into this setup for today, into the weekend. Okay, so you guys ready? Type 1 if you're ready. Type 2 if you need a little more time to get a nap in today. I can wait. Hello, Michael. Hello to Dave and Sandy. I see all you guys chiming in. Hello, Brandon as well. All right, I'm seeing some ones. Thank you, Dalton. Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. Let's get into it. We'll start with the overall timeline here that we've been showing for the past couple of days, and I think this is the best way to really illustrate what we're facing. For today, it's really gradient wind, or the general wind, the low pressure itself, and the warm front that came through this morning. So that's leading to the strong wind potential. We'll look at that here in just a second. Then we get ready for the severe setup for tonight. A severe weather episode is likely to take place tonight. Very similar, to be honest, to what we had Sunday. There's some differences. It's a little more of a kick on the wind, but very similar setup overall on how it will look on the radar, and really even the time frame of what we had on Sunday. They look very much like twins. Okay, that will then lay the groundwork down, the foundation for the flash flooding issues to start first. Not river flooding, but flash flooding. Once that begins, that will start to impact part of the commute into Thursday. And then we'll have multiple rounds of showers and storms every day that will have to track for a severe potential. I think Kentucky's more at risk of this than Indiana will be, but it will depend on where that front ends up creating a natural boundary. The storms will actually create one once they move in tonight, where they come to a rest and they apply the brakes and set onto Kentucky. That will determine really the storm setup for the next couple of days as well. So we really need to get through tonight to kind of know how that will play out. So I'm not going to go on too many maps on the other severe days just because of that issue. I can't really, I can assume and guess on how to look, but I don't think that's a safe way to do this right now. We'll just know potential is there, and we'll take it one at a time. But notice the flooding continues all across the bottom of the timeline. That's because we go from flash flooding into a river flooding scenario and general flooding in low-lying areas. The metro, of course, we run into issues with that. Various parts of the metro, the viaducts, you guys know, 6 Mile Lane, Earthsborn Parkway, Breckenridge Lane, 7th Street in downtown Louisville, Fairdale, parts of Fairdale, Valley Station, and Okolona are some of the lowest lying areas in the county. So you guys are more prone to flooding issues there as well. And, of course, the Salt River down into Bullitt County and around Shepherdsville and on I-65 will be prone to flooding issues. So this is a story, though, that is going to be told by each day affecting the next. So as we go through these alert days each day and we update you guys, we'll adjust accordingly, whether it's the severe potential, rainfall amounts, or flooding. We'll kind of just vary on this day by day. So fully expect there will be changes. Will it play out exactly as we're saying here all the way through Sunday? Probably not. There's too many moving parts. But the overall theme and the overall threats, absolutely. The models are screaming at this, so we've got to pay attention to that. But the finer details we'll be able to answer on a daily basis. Okay, that's your overall snapshot. Let's dive into first the wind, which it's a little gusty out there. But now we're starting to get a partly cloudy sky moving in. So once the sun has a chance to mix the air up, that will start to allow for stronger wind gusts. Takes a bit of time for that to build. Usually the afternoons see more of the peak. Right now, the gusts in Marion County, 32 miles per hour, 31 in Jasper, and they are going up. The warm front did come through as we moved through the morning commute today. It came through here with a few downpours actually in the area. There's the wind advisory. It's now in effect officially through 1 o'clock in the morning tonight. It doesn't really matter as much once you get into severe thunderstorms, right? For tonight, we're going to have high winds with the storm. So really, this is just a daytime issue that you need to be aware of on these strong wind gusts that could easily get to 50 miles per hour today. Some of the modeling is even higher than that, as you're about to see. All right, you can tell the warm front did pass through. Look at that. We're in the 60s now in Louisville. It's a good 10-degree jump in about an hour. 70s already showing up in our southwest sections. We're on our way to the 80s for today. Other than the wind issue, it will actually be a fairly nice day. It's just going to be annoying with the wind. So that's the only downfall. Other than that, it's going to be fairly quiet for a while on the radar. The record high today in Louisville is 85. So back in 1963, that it's going to be close. It's going to be real close. We tend to overachieve on temps here, so it wouldn't surprise me when we get back to that level again today. That's the positive. All right, we'll start with that because everything else from I'm about to say is kind of downhill from here. You see the partly cloudy sky we've got. The warm front came through. We'll hold on to these clouds. These will begin to thin out at times later today as well. So it looks like a lot of overcast skies, but that's not really the reality that we'll see. Here's a wider view of the entire storm system. You can see this is the warm sector right here. This is the triangle, if you will, of concern. Is once the warm front, which is right here, has passed by, producing some severe weather, by the way, a lot of hail reports in Ohio. We had a few downpours that did pop this morning when it passed by, but they weren't able to grow large enough to produce hail. Thank goodness. It did get to the point of producing lightning, but that's where they were moving out of the area rapidly. So that was good. Now we're in the warm sector. Now we're in the danger zone, if you will, for the rest of the day today. Rest in peace, Iceman. You can see we've got the severe weather ongoing in Missouri, tornado warnings that are out there across the Ozarks, back into northwest Arkansas. Some confirmed reports of tornadoes already in that area, by the way, with that line all the way into Oklahoma. We're going to be watching to see how these clouds do thin as we into this afternoon to allow for enough heating to get us in the 80s and allow for enough fuel and instability to be building ahead of this line of showers and thunderstorms moving in from the west. Let me show you first temperatures. You can see how that warm flow being pumped in already into the Mississippi Valley. Now that we're in that triangle and that danger zone I pointed out. Moisture levels. I mentioned this yesterday. The rapid increase in moisture is fairly fast here. Look at that. As soon as the warm front passed by, our dew point just started going up right away. And again, that's what's going to feed these beasts here to the west because they love to feed on that. So that moisture is the fuel for them. And we can measure that, by the way, by CAPE. That's the overall storm fuel. You see this a lot. I show this on a lot of our modeling here on the blog. You get into that gold color, that's where it gets really high. Red actually is not that high as the gold is. Red is lower in value. So there is still a bit of a lid on the atmosphere today that will hold things fairly quiet for a while. It's very natural to be in the warm sector and have a lid like that. So that's to be expected. So the main show, I still think, will be the main line to the west. There is only a small chance that a isolated rogue cell could form, mainly west of I-65 this afternoon. When we get that higher level moisture move in and the CAPE goes up a little more, there are some hints that there's a small little cell that wants to try to form. I've only seen hints of one or two that try to, but roughly between Evansville and Louisville, they try to sneak in. If that were to happen, it's a big if, they could easily become severe and rotate. So we need to watch that isolated threat. Right now, we just can't really jump on it too much because, again, the hints we're only getting is one or two little blips. So until we get more support for that, and we see the trend that the cap will be weak enough to allow that to happen, we're not going to get too much in the discussion on it. But the main line will be the main show, and that'll be arriving for tonight. What you don't see here that I do think is important is going to be the wind field. This is a look at the winds right now, the jet stream above our head. And you can see it's ramping up, pushing in not only the fuel and the warmth, but allowing for the storms to really just have a tailpipe to them. And that's important. Thunderstorms, when they have a tailpipe, they can go for hours and hours. And when they start producing tornadoes, This is where the term of long track tornadoes comes from. When we talk about enhanced risk or moderate risk, or as you're about to see, high risk in some parts of the region, it's all about the tailpipe. And when you have such a very much a fuel base, these things are like vacuum cleaners. But if they have nothing to stop them from ventilating, they just keep maintaining their intensity for miles and miles and miles. And if they're producing a tornado, that tornado can do the same thing. It can get on the ground and it can stay on the ground for miles and miles and miles. We just had one Sunday night, the longest track we've had since 2012 of 31 miles from Bullitt County, Hardin County, Bullitt County area that took place. So that was pretty remarkable to see that. So again, just be aware that's where the setup is really a problem here, is the ventilation. Now, what I'm going to show you, I'm going to get rid of the radar. Let me show you what the wind fields will do tonight, though, because this is important. As we get into 5, 6 o'clock this afternoon into the early evening, there's another what we call a jet streak that will form. The low-level jet will ramp up. As it does so, look at the last couple frames right over Kentucky here. You see that surge right there, and that's going to be roughly as we get into the 10 to 11 o'clock hour, it'll be over us. This is what's really going to kick up a lot of our severe potential that'll roll in from West Kentucky, Illinois into Indiana, is going to be that surge of wind, that low-level jet. That worries me. This is what will lead to the Boeing segments that we had on Sunday night as well. But you get these backward C-looking shapes, the Boeing segments. You can get spin-ups on every little notch on the leading edge of that are hard to pick out. But this likely is a good scenario that we may see that happen based on all the parameters I showed you on the fuel, wind, all the ingredients are there, guys. They're all there. So when you break this all down, this is what they're going with for the outlook. High risk has been expanded a little further south into southern areas of Arkansas. High risk does not include our area, but the moderate does, still across Indiana, just about all of our Indiana counties, and then through Louisville, and then mainly west of 65. From there, don't get too caught up in the categories. This may be the last time we even talk about it for today, to be honest, because it's at this point we're tracking them on the radar, right? We're not really worried about where we're at on a risk level. This is all bad. You get into enhanced, I mean, you're dealing with bad stuff. You get into a moderate, it's major, it's significant. You get into a high, it's the highest level you can get on the threat. So that's where things really catch your eye at the high risk essential days. But you can see it's lining up with the fuel and that wind surge that pushes in tonight, that low level jet. It almost lines up exactly on how that will play out later on for this evening. And that's the reason why the threat has been escalated. All right, we can break this down a bit more, looking at just the tornado potential. We've talked about this several times. You see the hatch area, that is EF2 or stronger that can develop. But when you get into the high risk, moderate and high risk level, the category is a minimum of EF3 that can develop out of that, EF3 plus potential. So that's where things escalate a bit more when you get into those higher percentages. And when you look at these percentages, it gets a little confusing, but it's roughly, what are your odds of getting a strong tornado within 25 miles of a point? About 15 to 30%, depending on where you're at in Kentucky. So that seems probably low to you, but think about that for a minute. 15 to 30% within 25 miles. It's likely to have one of that strength. That's pretty high odds on that end. So that's the reason why we got to watch it carefully. And that's why this is being labeled as a tornado outbreak, especially for the Boot Hill area of Missouri, West Kentucky. Got a feel for Mayfield. I'm sure their anxiety is really high and seeing these kind of maps. They just went through that scare not long ago on Sunday. Memphis, all the way down into near Little Rock. That is where the prime overlapping of all those ingredients I showed you really maxes out a bit more, especially when it comes to heating today. But certainly in moisture levels too, because you get those bases. The bases of the clouds are going to be very, very low. And the problem with that, I don't think we'll run into it with this setup because this is going to be a nocturnal event for us. But we run into this a lot when you get those really low cloud bases. Everyone sees that move in and you think that's a tornado when it's a low-hanging cloud that looks weird. It's a different color to it in front of another cloud and it looks like it's a funnel. We get those reports a lot in daytime events, nocturnal, not so much, but you're going to have a lot of those low-hanging clouds. So if you see a lightning flash and you see something that looks a little weird, what our job is to match up those reports with rotation on the radar. And if they match up, then it causes some concern. Sometimes they don't. And that's when we know then that more than likely that person was looking at a what we call a scud cloud, which is just a low-hanging cloud because moisture levels will be high. All right, that's your tornado potential. Damage winds, severe technically is once you cross 58 miles per hour, but this is a 75 to 85 mile per hour type of setup when it comes to straight line wind potential. So we're all in that category, especially in those Boeing segments. Got to watch that. Hail potential is a little interesting. I do think if there's any cell that can form this evening, it's mainly going to be west of 65. I'm not entirely sure it's going to be much more to the east, although I think we're going to get a lot of small hail reports. I got a feeling. A lot of marble size, nickel and dime. I think we'll hear a lot of that. But as far as getting to larger hailstones, I think those reports would be a little less common to see, but I think we'll get some. I think we'll get some out of that. We'll look at the hail parameters coming up. Side note on that, remember that when you are reporting to us on your hail size or a hail storm in general or hailstones that are falling, be sure to include the size so we know what's happening, because the size of the hail determines really the strength of the storm you're dealing with. And the larger the hailstone, the more concerned we get about tornadoes as well. So your reports on the size is important. Videos you can send on the Wave Weather app and pictures as well to show us. So it just helps us out, and you're helping out everyone watching right now that's downstream from you. When you get these storms tonight, you're helping them out because we're able to then analyze that, turn it around real quick, and then say, heads up, we're getting a lot of reports of this is happening in this county, so get ready, heads up for the next county. So you guys, it's all one big weather community here. You guys are part of the team. So sorry we can't pay you. That's a tough budget. But anyway, you get the idea. All right, here we go with Futurecast. We'll start with the HRRR. Is everyone good? What's going on? Everyone says it's dropping. Is my signal okay? Type 3 if I'm okay. Type 3. I'm hoping it's not Facebook. Sometimes it is on these feeds when they come down the pipe. But let me know if I'm frozen. Everyone's typing 3. Okay. If you can hear me, just keep in mind, if Facebook is dropping, it's probably, yeah, sorry. I wish I can solve that. I can't, unfortunately. That's a whole other issue beyond my pay grade here. But yeah, you may have to restart it if you have to get back onto the feed. My voice should still continue. I just may freeze with my emotions here, but who cares? You don't want to see me anyway. All right, here we go with the HRRR model. We'll do this hour by hour. Here we go this afternoon, 5 o'clock. Here we go. Temperatures into the 80s. This is the most recent run of the HRRR. So I have yet to see this. This is the brand new update. So we're looking at this for the first time together. Isn't this fun? Okay, this afternoon, 84. That's an increase in the HRRR model. That record of 85 looks a little more reachable, right? All right, here we go with the line moving in. It doesn't really show much of the cell action, right? You don't see much popping up yet in advance of that line. So that's good. We don't want that. We don't want that. Though at the same time, if we did have something that didn't get severe, just a little bit of noise, just a few showers, it would help try to weaken this a bit. But so it's a double standard. You really don't want big cells to form here in advance because they would be nasty, but you also want something there to disrupt what's behind it. But anyway, you get the idea. 9 o'clock, it's moving into our northwest counties this evening. Moves into Louisville near the 11 o'clock news. Now notice this section of the line, just like we saw Sunday, is moving faster than the southern part. It's those Boeing segments that will get started. Now we'll be able to pick those out once we see the first little indicator. Usually we get about, I would say, a 30 to 45-minute heads up when they start to develop, and we can kind of draw from there where they're going to go. So if this one does indeed end up being the case, the one that bolts across Indiana, that's the one to watch for certainly very strong potential hurricane force winds when those rake across their area like that. So got to watch that surge in that Boeing segment. Got to watch for spin ups. I can tell you right now by looking at this radar, I can't even tell the wind field by looking at this. This is just precipitation, but I can tell you already, this is the kind of feature that's going to have a lot of rotation with it. A lot of spinning going on. Not every one of those spins could be tornadoes. All right, so be clear, but they're going to be rotating. So we got to babysit them one by one. All right, it moves on by. It slows down and tilts even more. This is where, for those of you in Marion County, Adair County, and Taylor, you may have to deal with severe weather and warnings all the way through sunrise tomorrow morning because the line puts the brakes on. Now, if it were to go further south than this, then that may ease your pain on that idea and push it a little more into Tennessee. But for the rest of the area, it's mainly going to be about flooding now. We're going to be transitioning, especially in Louisville and southern Indiana, after the 11 o'clock midnight hour. It's all about tracking rainfall at that point. And your severe threat will be focusing more into southern areas of Kentucky as the line begins to tilt and slow down. There is a chance the rain could actually stop in Louisville. And that brings up another issue I want to make sure to wonder or to pass along is there will be moments throughout all these alert days where the rain will stop. Could there even be a moment where the sun tries to shine? Absolutely. So I don't want you guys to get caught off guard or think, oh no, things are a bust. It's not going to happen. Not that we want it to happen. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want you guys to get a lot of false hope. And there will be several dry periods that try to sneak in. It will be stormy much of the time. Don't get me wrong on that idea. But when they have these breaks, that's fully expected to have breaks and an easing of the rain. The problem is it keeps coming back. That's the issue. Now, if we can get longer breaks, and right now I am seeing that Friday may have one of the longer breaks. If we can get a longer break built in, that would help on easing the flash flooding just a smidge and maybe ease a bit of the river flooding a tiny bit. Not enough to make a huge difference, but we'll take whatever we can get. But I am seeing that dry window try to expand a little more into Friday. We'll see if that holds. I hope so. Okay, there we go into Thursday. There, you saw the little break that we have take place. Didn't last very long. Here comes the next surge as we into Thursday afternoon. Focusing a little more north, we've got to watch for thunderstorms in the southern part of that. That could be strong. Here we are at 11 o'clock news. This is 24 hours after tonight happens. And here we are again with another band of thunderstorms. Some of these could be strong, maybe some strong winds, very heavy rainfall. It continues to 2:30 in the morning, and then we'll just see the pattern repeat itself over and over again. All right, looking at your hail potential, you see the ability to get up the golf ball size hail is showing up mainly in our northwest side there. When the cells initially approach, they will have hail with them, but anything that can pop in this environment is your potential to get something larger in Indiana. We'll see how that trends. But notice as we get into the evening and the line itself moves in, the hail threat begins to ease down. We lose the heating of the day. Your ability to get larger hailstones starts to get choked. So you end up with more small hail than anything, and it begins to taper down and push to the south. So it's really just a late afternoon at the very beginning of this threat that we have to watch for the larger hailstones. Otherwise, I think hail will end up taking more of a backseat as the line itself moves in. All right, the next thing up is going to be your rotation tracks. So you weather junkies out there love that, don't you? Here we go. The rotation tracks, quite a few. And again, this doesn't mean that a tornado is forming everywhere you see it being drawn. It just means those are the spots that, as meteorologists, we got to pay attention to on how those develop on the leading edge of that line. Here we go at 10:30. Again, just about every spot on this line of storms has rotation with it. So it's going to be busy. And you know what? The Weather Service, they got a tough job because they got to watch all these. They got more counties than we do to have to watch. And if they end up seeing anything trying to rotate, because it happens so fast, it wouldn't surprise me. They may have to issue a lot of tornado warnings on this line tonight. It doesn't mean that they will all verify as far as touching down and doing damage, but you may get a lot of warnings tonight. So it's unfortunately going to be a bit of a hassle here to try to get to sleep, right? Because you're going to be weather aware for a while before you go to bed. We see that threat continue even into tomorrow morning. Look at that. Even in our southern counties, Adair County, Greene, and Taylor, still may have to deal with at least some rotation there all the way through early on your Thursday. Okay, so that is the HRRR model. Here is the GFS most recent update, but this is looking at it in a more of a grid form. So I don't want to overwhelm you all with all these numbers, but I want you to just see what we're looking at. You see the wind gust in yellow here today. These are general winds near 50 miles per hour. Okay, and then we get into the actual storms themselves. Indicates 53 near midnight, but it may miss the actual storm hitting, but it gets part of that storm. And you can see it's got the surge of wind right around 11 o'clock news tonight. STP, the significant tornado parameter, up to 2.5. That is high, quite elevated, right? Dew points are up there, well into the 60s in the green. And notice the rainfall amounts start to go up. Bit of a slowness when we get some of that drying for a brief period on Thursday, but otherwise it's indicating GFS anyway by the time we get to early Saturday for nearly 4.5 inches of rain at that point. But the biggest rain surge that we're seeing is actually happening Saturday now compared to what we have in the front end. So we may easily double that number for what's beyond the range you can't see here. Okay, so that's just looking at some of the data grids on that. I kind of want to show you all, some of the behind the scenes stuff when I can, right? Here we go with the hourly setup. This is our forecast. We're going to go with the low end potential for anything that could pop in Indiana. Those isolated cells, we'll monitor that. Otherwise, it's the main show is going to be that line that moves in. As you saw, very easy on that end to track once it moves from the west. And then we'll just kind of keep this elevated all the way through the nighttime hours itself there. Okay, next up, we got to talk about rainfall totals. We'll do that here in a second. And I want to get into the extended. Let me see where you guys are at here, because there's a lot of you here. So I apologize if I miss your question. Let's see. Hi, Maria. I hope you're doing well. Is there any threat of mudslides? It's not so much here as there is in really in East Kentucky. And that just depends on terrain. People that are used to seeing mudslides are a little more exposed to that. But in areas that normally don't see them, I think that's a little unlikely. Okay, everyone get a nap in this evening. I agree, Monica. We're going to be working. We've got our shifts arranged where we're trying to keep at least 2 meteorologists here majority of the time so that you guys are never left alone. You've got someone here watching, and if you don't see us on stream, you don't see us on TV, that's usually a good thing, right? If we're on TV, it's a bad thing because that's usually meaning a dangerous scenario is unfolding, whether a tornado is touching down or potential for one, or there's a damaging wind scenario taking place heading into the area. That's about the only times you would see us on TV talking for a long time. Otherwise, we will likely be on streaming more than anywhere. So where you're watching now is where we're likely going to be a majority of the time for the next several days. So as always the case, check there. Always check there on our Wave Weather Now streaming channel to see if we're on. And that's the easiest way to know how things are trending, because we'll ramble forever, as you guys know. Everyone's asking about their own community. I know, I get it. You're wanting to know the chance of tornado in your town. I understand that. Everyone is about in the same boat on the severe, though, guys. If you are in wave country, you have a threat for a damaging winds tonight, and you have a threat for a tornado, and you certainly have a significant threat of flash flooding. Everyone's in that same category. I'm not worried about where the lines are drawn on moderate, slight, enhanced. Don't worry about that. All right. We show you that to give you an idea of how the rest of the country as the storm system is unfolding and where we are compared to them. But as far as our area goes, we're all in the same boat. We're all at the same potential on this. So just be weather aware is the key point on that. All right. We need to talk about rainfall totals. That's important, and the significance of the river flooding. And we've got to talk about the unusual setup that's unfolding as we head into next week. Do a small break here. Let me get that loaded because I can already tell I missed one map. So let me try to get that loaded up. Bear with me. I'll be back in 30 seconds. Don't you go anywhere. Don't turn that stream off. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate your patience as I get everything loaded up there. I saw someone comment. I've already lost your comment already. That flew by. But you're asking, can you show me the rainfall totals for each wave? I could. The problem is that's going to vary on where you're at. So I'm going to just stick for right now. I showed you the GFS model of showing 4.5 inches by early Saturday, right? Some of the high-res data is indicating 4 inches could fall as early as by tomorrow night. So each wave is going to have to be taken one at a time. But I will give you the grand total outlook here in just a second of where we stand on that. Just want you guys to be aware that there will be some more fine-tuning that has to be done on that end. Okay, let's talk about how this is going to evolve into Friday and Saturday. So Friday, as I mentioned, this is going to try to push back north again, the boundary will. This is where we could score several hours of dry time. I'm hoping. Indiana, You're the only ones I'm worried about. You may not get to that level, but you'll be close. The problem is that it will help fuel the last and final round, which is going to be the low pressure moving in from Texas. That will then move in with a severe threat as we into Saturday afternoon and night, and very heavy rain, especially near the track of the low and the northern side where the front still exists. That is where rainfall amounts of 3 to 4, maybe 3 to 5 inches, just with that piece alone, will be possible. This is what really puts the stamp on the overall rain total I'm about to show you for the area. Is really this portion of it is the last wave here on Saturday. So if this is off anywhere on its track, or that rain band sets up a little more north and we just have a wave of thunderstorms, then that will take down our overall forecast and rainfall amounts by a few inches, actually. So that would be the one saving grace. I'm not sold on a lot of saving grace we're going to get from tonight, tomorrow, and even on parts of Friday, but Saturday is the catalyst. If Saturday materializes the way it looks now on paper, then these rain totals we've been fearing will be maxed out. If it ends up being a little less than expected, then we'll be able to draw back. I hope that's the case. I will gladly be able to change that map. But right now, we're not able to do that. The upper low on this is going to be interesting. I know you guys don't want to hear me talk about snow, but this upper low is, it's got a little kick to it. It won't be anything more than a flake or two, and you'd probably be asleep, but still, it moves on by. But what is more interesting is next week is that we get cold, guys. This wave dropping in on Tuesday is going to have a band of showers with it and gusty winds. I've got us in the 40s for highs, wind chills in the 30s, and it could be a rain snowflake mix. It wouldn't surprise me on Tuesday. I mean, it's going to be a cold blast on Tuesday. It moves out of here, and we try to warm up toward Thunder over Louisville weekend, but we have another low that will be dropping down. I don't think it's going to be overly cold, but the question will be the track of that low. How does it dip down? Because it'll get stuck. It'll kind of linger. If it aims right to the area, it could be a wet Thunder over Louisville. But Thunder over Louisville, I'm sure, has got their hands full just dealing with the Ohio being out of its banks alone by that point, right? All right, here are the flood alerts that are out. And again, this covers the entire event all the way into Sunday. That's when that final low finally moves out of here. Here are the totals on the forecast. Some slight adjustments based on some of the data. We've been able to do that, but I still think we need to keep the ranges here of these 6 to 8 in many areas. Some are going to exceed that, though, and get into the 10 to 11-inch territory. I don't know if we'll get to 12, but given how thunderstorms can overproduce, we're accounting for that margin of error there. And then the potential to get a foot or more is still showing up in West Kentucky into Memphis. In fact, National Weather Service in Memphis sent out a statement earlier saying this is going to be a generational flood event for that area of Tennessee and West Kentucky, where, once in a generation type of event. So this is big, guys. This is going to be a national headline setup, and how we fit into that, I hope that we don't. But I feel for those guys too. It's going to be a mess there. I mean, it's going to be, it could be catastrophic, especially for I-40, high impacts on I-40 down to the south. But we got to really watch this carefully, because if we end up seeing that 12 plus try to build back north, especially if the Saturday system gets a little off, then we've got big problems here. But I'm hoping by now everyone's aware of the system and you're prepared just in case that were to happen. You know what to do, right? That's the key in all this. Let's get you into the 10-day, and I got to get out of here. You see the alert days that are out. You see the chilly air for next week and the rain chances overall after that. Okay, you guys good? I hope you are. All right. Louisville is in a moderate risk. Yes. Saw a question on that. All right, you guys seem all right. I'm not going to ramble here forever because there's just a lot for us to do today. We got to keep an eye on how this is going to trend. I'm going to have more on middays at 11 a.m. We're going to be on several times, obviously. And let's hope tonight goes well and that we end up with a team reversion. But our fear is that's not going to be the case. So be weather aware, guys. Stay informed. Enjoy the warm weather, though, today. Try to spend some time to enjoy that. Just hang on tight to your neck hair. It will be quite windy. All right, I'll see you guys coming up on the flip side.